Um, and if you can just define minimalism for me, that's the best first question I can think of.
Hmm. For me, minimalism, it's about only devoting like time and energy, money to the things that bring value to your life.
Yeah.
And it's about living intentionally and living by your values.
Right.
And even more personally for me, my core value is freedom. So in my minimalist journey, everything that I try to do, I try to ask myself, is this helping me get free, get freer?
Right. Right. And how long have you been on this journey? How long have you been on this journey, and what prompted you to start?
So it's been a little over 5 years. I started at the end of 2012. And what really prompted me is that I was at a point in my life where I felt stuck. I just didn't know what I was doing with my life. I didn't feel motivated, and I felt trapped in a certain lifestyle. So I had a good job. I had my own place. I was in a relationship. I was paying my bills. I was being an adult,
Mm-hmm.
doing everything that society tells you you're supposed to do.
Right.
But I didn't feel happy.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I always say this, I didn't know when I started this journey that I was a minimalist or I was doing minimalism.
Mm-hmm.
I just thought if I can't figure out what it is that makes me happy or what's going to motivate me or what do I really want to do with my life, let me get rid of everything that's distracting me, everything that's not making me happy until, I get down to the source
Right. Right. Right.
and figure out what it is that I want to do with my life.
Mm-hmm.
So I began eliminating things,
Mm-hmm.
stuff. I got rid of my apartment. I moved back home. I commuted for a little while to my job, and then I quit my job. And it was just a process of, subtracting,
Mm-hmm.
piece by piece by piece, and then sort of building back up to what I really wanted.
Right. Right. That's amazing. That is freedom. Like I just that just it sounds and it feels like good to even hear that because there's just so much clutter in the world. Clutter of stuff, but just clutter, distraction. Like I've been recently doing what like watching a lot of Mind Valley videos, and they
Mm-hmm.
talk about training your mind and establishing like the one that I've been watching. He talks about establishing a morning routine and not picking up your cell phone first thing in the morning, not dealing with distractions and stuff of that nature. And that's not necessarily minimalism, but it's part of figuring out who I am as a person, setting myself up for success for my day
Mm-hmm.
versus being worried about other people because that's what I'm doing. I'm checking Instagram, I'm checking my email, I'm
Mm-hmm.
checking my sales, I'm checking Facebook, and all these things that are basically distractions and that have no value for me in the first hour or two of my day.
Mm-hmm.
All those things are still going to be there, after that hour or two,
That's right.
and it's just one of those things. So I'm really trying to deal with my own my own things and stuff like that when it comes to just that morning routine and just taking out distractions. Um,
And I think that absolutely is a part of minimalism because you are, it's about intentionality.
yes.
Instead of just doing the first thing that comes to your mind or mindlessly scrolling through Instagram or whatever, you are saying, this is how I want to start my day, and these things are going to help me set the right tone so that I can have a good day, a productive day.
Yeah.
And I definitely think that's absolutely part of minimalism because you are eliminating those distractions and those things that don't bring value to your life and
Right.
aren't going to help you reach your goals.
Right. Hmm. Very good. I guess I'm on my way. No. So let's see. I was looking at your website, your particular website,
Mm-hmm.
and you had this something that you posted in January, at the like very beginning of January, is minimalism, the glamorization of poverty, and you had an amazing discussion on Instagram, and I went actually to the Black Minimalist website and
Mm-hmm.
read the article and the the article, your thoughts on your website, and then on the website, everybody's, I guess, thought of that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then some of the I guess the conversation on the Instagram was minimalism being a conscious choice
Mm-hmm.
versus forced on a person due to their economic status.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And because you don't have the resources, the money, because you're poor, you don't live in an area where you have, like, I think there was somebody was talking about not being able to choose to use reusable bags, and
Mm-hmm.
all of that. So I mean, that to me stuck out, um, like in the eco-friendly community, or actually zero waste community. I asked a person that I did an interview back in December. It seems like zero waste is very trendy. You know, it seems very trendy. Put all your trash in this mason jar, and that's all your trash for the next 3 years. And it's very trendy to do that. It's very trendy to have your recyclable, to recycle, and to have your reusable bags, and all these things. Do you feel just the movement of minimalism? I think there's a difference between the movement of minimalism versus people of color experience with
Mm-hmm.
minimalism.
Mm-hmm.
Can you
Mm-hmm.
kind of speak about, like, what people of color, what their experience with minimalism? Does that make sense?
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
trying
yeah.
to get my words out.
It's okay. I understand. I understand where you're going, and I
Yeah.
think um, my particular response sort of speaks to that also. So yes, I agree that eco-friendliness, zero waste, sustainability, and even minimalism, there's a very trendy, commodified
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
um, side to these movements, and these movements are catering to people who are white, predominantly male, but female too, and also
Mhm.
people of a certain socioeconomic level.
Right.
And there has been a glamorization of these movements. I wouldn't necessarily say a glamorization of poverty,
Mhm.
but there is, a sort of, I guess, commodification or glamorization. But I wouldn't go that far. But yes, that does occur,
Yeah.
and that's another reason why Black minimalists exist, because I realized that my experience of growing up and how I was raised was going to force me to look at my own minimalist journey and how I experienced minimalism differently than the minimalists
Right. Right.
and their backstory. And something that you sort of mentioned earlier in our chat about how you grew up with um, around a family of people who
Mhm.
like to hold on to stuff.
Mhm.
And I definitely think that speaks to the cultural legacy of Black people in the United States,
Mhm.
and our history, because we have been denied so many things from
Right.
the time, they took us from Africa and brought us here, to even after, the Civil War, Reconstruction,
Mhm.
Jim Crow, the Civil Rights Movement, up until today, we're still being denied our basic civil and human rights.
Right.
So, materially, that manifests itself in us wanting to hold on to things
Mhm.
and not get rid of things because we've never had anything,
Right.
or we're afraid that we're going to lose
Right. Right.
those things. So it's, that fear definitely plays into our cultural and historical legacy as Black people in the United States. Absolutely. And I had the same experience with my family. Like, they're not hoarders, but borderline.
Mm-hmm. Right, right.
And even, when I moved back home, when I started our minimalist journey, my mom's not a minimalist. I think I want to say that I've had an influence on her and impacted her, but even still, we come from like a working class / poor background, and we hold on to things because we never know when we're going to need them again, or we don't want to lose them.
Right.
And just in the process of living with her, we definitely had moments where I couldn't understand that.
Sure.
But I couldn't understand that, and I was just like, why don't you just get rid of it?
Mm-hmm.
But I needed to understand the reason why she's holding on to certain things. And I think that's something that we need to discuss more as a community. I think that conversation with that article definitely sparked a lot of thought around it, but it's definitely something we have to explore more, as we approach building our community, through minimalism and sustainability, and not, I guess, looking at our peers, our fellow community members who are, I guess, slower to embrace simple living or don't really understand the process of simple living. We have to have grace and really take into account our history,
right,
with, materialism and consumerism.
Right. And I totally agree. And that is like one thing for my business, because I know people are familiar and use what they have traditionally used as far as chemicals. And
bleach.
Bleach. Oh my gosh, I had this experience.
People love their bleach.
Oh my god, that word, bleach. I had this experience this past week, and it just like took me back, because I don't use chemicals in my house. I don't use bleach, and I don't use a lot of like things. Like I used to, and I don't now, because I make them, and I'm like, my products are actually better than a lot of those, and they're non-toxic. So anyways, I have my mother-in-law that lives with me now. Since the beginning of January. She moved on after my father-in-law passed away. And she loves her chemicals, bleach and Tide, and all those traditional type products. And so she brought in the Tide and the Dawn and the bleach and whatever else she uses. And I had my non-toxic dish soap on the counter with her next to her Dawn, my cleaner next to her bleach and her all-purpose cleaner. And for the most part, she was respectful as far as cleaning with no bleach. And last week, I came in and I smelled bleach, and it was the strongest, I was like, oh my God. And I got really upset, and I was like, you know what, calm down. That's what she uses. Just let her use what she uses, even though it's your bathroom.
Right.
Let her just be her. Just let her do that. Excuse me. So when I moved into our new place, I was like, we're not taking any chemicals with us at all. So I sneakily made sure that when we were cleaning, that we used all of her products so that we can get rid of them. So when we got over here, the only option that she had was my products. So we've been here like 3 days, and she comes to me this morning. She says, you know that cleaner that you gave me, that spray cleaner that I use in the bathroom? I'm like, yeah, because I'm like, I don't know where this is going. I'm like, yeah. She's like, you made that? I'm like, yeah, that's what I make, that's what I sell. I'm like, yeah. And she's like, it works really good. She was like, I buy these cleaners that, from the store, and you spray it, and you have to actually like scrub it a little bit more and get the soap scum off. She was like, your cleaner, all I did was spray it and it was gone. She was like, can you make me some more of that? I'm like, yes, ma'am, I sure can. As much as you want. And my point is, people are familiar with what they are used to, what they've been told, or what they've experienced in the past. And it's only until they have experienced something new. So when they learn, about minimalism, or they learn about eco-friendly and non-toxic products, a lot of the times it's not what you say to somebody, it's just how you live your life. And that is really what they take. And that's one of the things that I'm learning in my business, is teaching people, that it's okay to switch from toxic to non-toxic. It's gonna still work. You're still gonna get a clean bathroom, and you're not even gonna get all that smell of all those toxic fumes, and you're not gonna have to work as hard, because a lot of those products you still have to work hard to clean your stuff.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's just they have to experience something else. And that's like with anything that's different. And I think minimalism is that. And
Yeah.
I don't know. I think African Americans, we just have to experience stuff in a different way, because we've been taught and conditioned, a certain way. This is what my mom did. This is what my nana did. And this is what I'm gonna use, and this is how I'm gonna be, and all of that. And it's just education.
Yeah.
It's just education.
I think us as people, I guess, who are sort of leaders in our movements, we have to be an example, for our community, and also be an example, within our families.
Yeah.
Me and my mom definitely went back and forth about things, because, like, Dr. Bronner's. So, I thought about all that into the house, and I showed her, all the different ways that it can be used. I use it to wash my hair. I used it to wash clothes. I told her she could use it to wash dishes. And even though she still hasn't picked up on it, for me, what I would do is I would just buy it. And so buy it so it's in the house, and eventually when she runs out of that thing that she got, she gonna use it. And she doesn't have anything else. It's just a slow process.
It's a slow process, yeah.
But another thing I wanted to add to it too is, like, one of her, I guess, another one of the challenges for people, especially people who are of a lower socioeconomic status, is the cost of these products. So she cannot afford to buy, a liter of Dr. Bronner's, because for her, that's very expensive. For me, I understand the value of it, so I'm willing to spend extra money on it. But that's another thing that we have to, teach about and be an example about in our community, is that just because it's cheaper doesn't mean it's better. But also saying, I understand why you want to buy the cheaper product, because you are trying to work, you're trying to live on a limited, budget.
Right. And that's a good, really good point. And that, that's something that is not, I guess, spoke about, because, we think, oh, anybody can do this, but not everybody can.
Right.
And I mean, they're just not able to. It is expensive. Like, my products are very expensive, and people are gonna either be able to purchase it or they're not. And it's just that thin line. It's one of those things that I constantly think about, because I'm like, okay, would I buy this product for this amount? And I'm like, well, the value of it, yes, I would. But would I be actually able to afford it? And so I have to think about that all the time when I'm pricing my stuff. It's like, can I afford this? Will I buy it? What is the value?
Yeah.
And go ahead.
And the value, and is it accessible?
Yeah.
A lot of times in our communities, we don't have, like, a bulk grocery store where we can go buy, dry beans, or, what I'm saying, like, something that we need that's healthy for us. A lot of people don't have access to those things in their communities.
Right.
So yeah, there's a quote, and I don't know who's the author of this quote, but I've seen it been popping up recently, saying that if your revolution is not accessible to the poor, it's not radical, or it's not revolutionary. I know I'm butchering this, but basically, whatever you're trying to teach people, whatever movement you're trying to get people on board with, if it's not accessible to the poorest of us, to the least privileged of us, is it really radical? Is it really revolutionary? Are you really making a difference? And it's something that we have to consider, in our movements.
Right. Well, that's really It's very true. That's a very heavy quote.
It
Yeah.
is. And
It's a
it's
very,
not saying that, you know, everything has to be cheap or you have to change the price points for your products, but it's just saying that how can we charge, this community who can afford to pay
hmm
this amount for this product and then take that revenue or that income from that product and use it to benefit this other community that can't
right, right,
afford it necessarily.
right, right. Now, how does let's see. Okay, basically that's consumerism and capitalism, and you know, right now in our world it's consume, consume, consume,
Uh-huh.
and minimalism is, it's not consume. It's somebody I wrote this quote down from one of your posts, and it says, "Being grateful for what you have, and seeing the abundance and simplicity." You know
Uh-huh.
I think though, subconsciously or consciously, our community is that. We haven't, for the most part, a lot of us don't have a lot of stuff or
Uh-huh.
haven't been privileged or blessed with, a whole bunch of money or not middle class
Uh-huh.
or, whatever the case is. So we understand simplicity in a sense, but then we also can be gripped with some part of consumerism and some of the things that we purchase.
Uh-huh.
Um, how do you talk to somebody that is starting or wanting to start a minimalist lifestyle? Because it's truly, these things are lifestyles. They're not something
Uh-huh.
that you pick up today and put down tomorrow. You're gonna pick up and pick up and pick up, and you might put
And
it
put it
down, but
down. And pick it back up
yeah,
later.
and, just like me, I'm picking up minimalism and I'm putting it down and I'm picking it back up, and 'cause as I'm learning, I'm kind of evolving in my own life and kind of making it a part of who I am. How do
Uh-huh.
you speak to somebody that is like has no idea what minimalism is, and but knows that they want to like have something of value, have something of simplicity, and are not at that place where they can. But like, what's that conversation look like? What does that sound like?
That's a difficult question.
Sorry.
But it's an important no, it's an important question. And I think you have to start by talking about what is valuable and what is not.
hmm
Because I think that, like you said, when we haven't been privileged or blessed to grow up, having everything that we want and need, when we get to a position where we can start consuming more,
hmm
we tend to think that everything is valuable.
hmm
And we think that everything that we want is a need when it's not.
Right.
So you really have to start by defining what your values are, understanding what's valuable and what's not, defining what your values are, and figuring out who you are. And I can say this now because
hmm
I'm 5 years into this,
Right.
but when I first started, I wasn't thinking about values.
hmm
I was just thinking about the stuff
hmm
and what do I do with this stuff. So you really have to question, why do I own these things? Why did I buy these things? Why do I want these things?
Right.
And that's not necessarily easy,
hmm hmm
but that's where I would start now.
Right. Right.
Um, you know, but sometimes, and this is how I got around to my values. It was important for me to question the stuff
hmm
and interrogate the stuff first in order for me to understand what my values were.
Right.
So it's difficult. You can start at either point, but where I'm at in my life now, I would say start questioning why you own these things
Right.
and what they mean to you.
Yeah. And honestly, I think that is an excellent starting point because that is the one thing that I keep going back to. And I'm not even a minimalist. you know.
You are a Midwest.
Oh,
You have the intention.
I have the intention, right? And
The
you
actions
know,
will follow.
right. And I mean, in a lot of ways, it is. Like I said, when I moved, when I was packing up, I threw away a lot of stuff, and I got rid of a lot of clothes. I'm holding on to that bag of clothes because my intention is to do a spring swap,
Uh-huh.
you know. But then I still think about that, and I'm like, it's just, I mean, I don't know. I just have to think about it because I'm like, okay, am I still consuming even though I'm giving away these things? Am I still consuming because I'm still taking in something that,
Yeah, but the way it works because it's sustainable. If you're trading one thing for another thing, then at least you're not adding an extra thing. That's
right,
how I look at it.
right, oh, okay,
You're still maintaining the level that you're at.
okay.
Now, if you give away one thing and then you get five
Like,
things, then that's not sustainable.
right,
Because you're consuming more than you're letting go of.
right.
But
And so,
it's a balance.
yeah, so my conscious idea when I go is to make sure that I'm not just consuming to consume, but actually, this is a sustainable effort. I'm giving away these things in order to take in, not take in more or give away. Okay, so there has to be a balance. Okay, I get that.
And it's about when you're taking in these things, these new things, after you've given away the other things, you're also more conscious about them.
Mm-hmm.
So again, you're not just replacing 5 things that you don't need with 5 other things that you don't need.
Right.
But the next 5 things that you're taking in, you're saying, okay, I need this blazer for work meetings.
Right.
Or, I need more casual pants when I'm mixing up my products.
Mm-hmm.
So like the things that you're bringing in have a purpose.
Right. Okay. That's very good because I'm like, so how does this work? I'm giving away all these things and I'm getting them, but
Right.
But that makes a lot of sense. That's very good, very good. So so now you live in Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
How? Why? And it kind of take us through what your process was, because you said you're from the East Coast, you're from the United States, now you live in Mexico. What was that whole process of saying, okay, I want to leave from where I am and go here? Like what was that process, and then what does your life look like now?
Mm-hmm. Okay, so overall, in general, one of my life goals was always to live in a different place, experience a different culture.
Mm-hmm.
My degree is in anthropology and Latin American studies, so I've always had an interest in other people's cultures.
Nice.
First off, but coming to Mexico, it wasn't like I had this all figured out from the time that I established that goal to now.
Right.
Really, why I wanted to go abroad is because I needed a break from the United States.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot going on in the U.S. right now, politically. The police brutality. So let me just back up.
Okay.
I went to the Philippines in the summer of 2016.
Mm-hmm.
I was there for a month, and the end of our trip was right around July 4th, and it took us about 2 days to travel back to the States because it's very far away. We had a lot of flights to catch.
Right.
So as we're preparing to leave, first of all, I don't celebrate 4th of July because it wasn't our independence.
Right.
So that, I'm always in like a little funky mood around Independence Day anyway.
Right.
So then, as we're, making our way back, I start seeing things on Facebook about the deaths of Philando Castile and Alton Sterling, and a few other people who have been killed during that week too, but those are the 2 names that, the first ones.
Right.
And I just felt so overwhelmed and sad and angry, and I'm just like, what am I coming back to? Mm-hmm. Why am I subjecting myself to this life, being a Black person living in America where at any moment you may die over the most trivial of things. And I am privileged enough, or I have the option to remove myself from this situation. So what am I waiting for?
Mm-hmm.
So it was at that point that I decided I was going abroad.
Right.
I thought I was going back to the Philippines, but that didn't work out. I came to Mexico because I traveled. Mexico was my first solo trip abroad for 3 weeks, and Mexico, that first trip was a part of that, I guess, my minimalist journey. That first year of me exploring minimalism.
Okay.
Mexico was a big part of that because, again, I needed a break, and I needed the headspace, the mental space, the physical space to challenge who I was, challenge what I knew, challenge my daily routines, and just figure out what I wanted to do with my life. So because Mexico was so pivotal in helping me understand those things and really get my values together, the first time I decided to come back here to live abroad. So, and I'm just lost now about what I'm saying. But yeah, it was a challenge. It was a challenge. I needed a break from the U.S. I needed to understand who I was outside of the context of being Black in America.
Right.
And it was also a challenge for me, my minimalist journey. I've been living with my mom for the past 5 years, and I needed to sort of be with myself and live with myself, and see how that was going to work out.
Right.
So that's sort of how I ended up here in Mexico. But it was a process. I spent a little over a year preparing to come here. I had to save a lot of money. I paid off debt, and I had to constantly interrogate myself about, as this year was going by, every time I wanted to buy something or do something, I had to ask myself, okay, is this going to help me get to Mexico? Is this going to help me be free?
Right.
Is this going to help me do this, or is this going to hinder me? So it was definitely challenging just preparing to come here.
Right.
I had to purge, so at this point, I'm almost 5 years into my journey. I started preparing to come here at the end of 2016, and then, throughout 2017. So I'm almost 5 years in, and I'm thinking to myself, oh, I'm minimalist. I'm deep into this. I don't have that many things. However, when it came time for me to pack, I had to fit my life into 4 bags. 2 bags that could be checked for free, and then the 2 carry-on bags.
Right.
And I realized that I wasn't as deep.
Oh, wow.
as I thought I was. Into my minimalist journey, and I had to purge several times and really interrogate, will I need this in Mexico? Is this going to help me in Mexico? Is this going to help me build this new life in this place? And it was a very challenging experience, but I'm happy that I made it through, sort of.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I've been here in Mexico now for almost 5 months. And I've had even more challenges as far as my minimalist journey. So really centered around like my housing. I live in a 3-bedroom house by myself. And the reason why I live in this 3-bedroom house is because it's close to where I work.
Right.
And because it's inexpensive.
Right.
But it wasn't necessarily the best choice for me because it was very overwhelming, and I had a lot of anxiety behind furnishing this house and making this house a home. Because, I have been living with my mom for the past 5 years. I didn't have to buy anything. I moved into her home, besides a few things like my own bed, a desk, and everything. Right. I haven't furnished a home, my whole own house in a long time.
Right.
So it was very challenging, and I definitely would not do this again. I wouldn't move into a 3-bedroom house, and again, I had to interrogate myself about, because I bought a lot of things, but I still had to figure out, as I was buying these things, what I needed
Right.
and what I wanted, and it was difficult. It was difficult. But on the other hand, living in Mexico has allowed me to do some other things that I didn't accomplish while I was living in the States. So I've been able to get more, I guess, zero waste, more eco-friendly.
Okay.
I was able to stop using paper towels.
Wow.
And have like cloth napkins made for myself. I was able to have produce bags made from some curtains that I bought, so I could cut down on my plastics. I'm able to buy fresh fruits and vegetables, on a weekly basis.
Right.
I'm able to shop in bulk at the markets. So while I was challenged on one end, it's helped me to sort of make progress on other areas of my journey.
Sure. Yeah.
And I realized, even in living here, that I can still do with less. Like, I'm coming back to the States in April, and I'm going to have to, get rid of everything that I've accumulated, because I didn't know that I was going to be, coming back and then not sure when I'm returning to Mexico. So I have to get rid of everything again.
Oh, wow.
To go back. So,
right.
Even now I'm contemplating, like, what else can I get rid of? So in that respect, I love this experience. It's just, I guess, spiritually wise and personally, I've just been learning a lot about myself, my strengths, and, I've been surviving here in a country that's not, my native country. I'm speaking a language that's not my native language.
Wow, that's awesome.
And, it's been a really great experience, and I do look forward, to living abroad, in other places and doing it more. But it's just been a really necessary experience for me. And like I said, it really just challenged who I am or who I think I am, and help me get closer to who I'm becoming.
Wow, that's awesome. Well, I applaud you for that, because not a lot of people have the guts or the ability or the mindset to be able to do that. To leave their people at their family and all their stuff, and that's hard. Me and my spouse have thought about going off grid, and the thing that stops us is, like, how do we get water, and where are we going to go to the toilet, and things of those nature that nature that we're so privileged to have. And a lot of places don't have all that stuff, but we're like, we don't want to do that, and that's what stops us. Honestly, that's really what stops us, is how we're going to get water, where we're going to use the restroom, but we don't think about what we're going to gain as far as freedom. And that really is what we want. We want to be able to raise our own animals, have our garden, be fully sustainable, but we're like stuck on those two things. And that stops us, and that's one of the things that we really constantly battle in our mind, that, once we get that in our mindset, and when we have that locked in into where we're just like, we're going to figure it out, then we can live that dream. But right now we're like stuck in, we need a shower, and we need to use the restroom.
And you brought up a good point about that. Sort of going back to what we talked about earlier about people have to see how things can work before they adopt it. But I think, just like you're saying, we need to, I lost my train of thought. But we need to see people, like you said, doing the things that we want to do in order for us to understand how we're doing it. Oh, I know what I was going to say. When we make major changes in our life, I think it's because we get to a point where we're no longer comfortable, and we can't take this current situation anymore. We get to a point where we're fed up, and we can't keep living the way we're living. And I think that's a point where people generally make large changes. And I also wanted to add one more thing to the conversation about why I decided to go abroad, and feeling like I was not free in my own country. And I just had to ask myself, if I were to die tomorrow, can I say that I did everything that I wanted to do?
Yeah.
Can I say that I was truly free? And that was another thing that sort of pushed me to go ahead and move abroad. Is because I didn't want to look back and say, coulda, shoulda, woulda.
Right.
Or I didn't because of fear.
Right. Right. Yeah, I absolutely understand that. That's why I started my business, because I had a really good job for the state, and when we moved from Arizona to Nevada, I was working for the state in Arizona, and I knew I didn't want to go back to a 9 to 5 job. I was like, okay, I'm sick of this. I don't want to do this anymore, and I'm not. And so I have been formulating my products for like the last 18 months before I launched. And I was like, okay, now you're ready. Let's launch. You have everything that you need. And, I'm an introvert as well. So it's hard for me. I overthink everything, and, it just takes me a minute. I'm just like, and, I don't even know why I have a business, because I'm not like social, I'm not an extrovert, it's just
right.
like, I can deal with you one-on-one. I'm really good with one-on-one, or just a few people, but crowds of people, I'm like, oh God. So like Instagram and Facebook Live and Instagram Live, I'm like,
it's hard, right?
Oh Lord.
To challenge ourselves to get out there.
I feel you.
I feel you. That's one of the goals that I sort of made for myself, is to share more about myself, online in the space. And it's been challenging, but I'm trying. Yeah. But I know I can do better. But I feel you on that. I feel you.
Yeah, but so now you live in Mexico. You have this great network organization, the Black Minimalist, and you have such a great community there. I was going through and I was looking at all the people that you have in the directory, and I'm like, oh my gosh. So I clicked on like so many websites, and I'm like, these are fascinating people. I didn't know they existed.
Exactly. I'm telling you right now, and this was something I wanted to talk about with you on our conversation, is that 5 years ago, or even not even 5 years ago, 3 years ago, when I started blogging about my minimalist journey and searching for Black minimalists, barely a fraction of these blogs and businesses existed.
Yep.
And it still amazes me that we've grown so much.
Yes.
Just in the past 5 years. Just in the past year. Like, we have over 200 links in that directory. And I'm still finding people every day, and people are contacting us, saying, hey, have you looked at this blog or this brand or something? So it's amazing, and it's so inspiring. It makes me hopeful that we will be able to provide the things that we need for our communities.
Yeah, and I think it's awesome. Like I was telling you, I was just going through link to link and just reading everything, and I'm like, oh my God, it's just so beautiful, and it's so amazing. And I found a person, I cannot think of the blog, but I know I have her up in one of my things. But she has a farm, or is off the grid or somewhere in North Carolina.
Yes, off grid in color.
And that's exactly what it is.
Her actual name is blanking on me, and I apologize. But we're actually releasing her podcast tomorrow.
Nice.
Our team member Farai interviewed her.
Nice.
So you'll get to hear more about her.
Okay, I will definitely check that out, because that's kind of what we wanted to do. So I was on her page for like forever, and I'm like, oh, look at this. So we were looking at the pigs and the chickens, but just to see, like you said, you have to see other people doing it, and it's made us really think again, okay, if you guys really want this, then you should try it. Don't give up just because it looks like it's hard and it seems like it might be hard. People are actually doing it. So if other people can do it, we can do it as well. But anyway, so you have this great, community that you started, and it's the blackminimalist.net. What motivated you, besides, I know you said that, there's nothing out there. I haven't seen this much curated content in one place. And so it's an amazing place if you want to learn about minimalism and, just different things. There's beauty on there. There's food. their spirituality, which I never even thought about. When I saw that section on spirituality, I was like, wait, now I need a whole bunch more time to go through these and like look and see what people are talking about, because it's just, I never thought about spirituality and minimalism or anything, other than traditional religion and spirituality,
Right.
So to couple that together is awesome. But tell me about the Black minimalism, your website, and what the purpose is, and what you plan on in the future. Just tell me your thoughts about that.
So Black minimalists, it's really about liberation. That is the ultimate goal. And everything that we do, we hope it inspires, both individual Black folks, but also groups and communities of Black folks to fight harder and struggle towards, our liberation as a people. And one of the ways that we do this is by telling stories, or making space for people to tell their own stories. One of the things that we're really trying to focus on more as we're moving forward and building Black minimalists is making sure that anyone who is interested in this lifestyle and who's interested in liberation has a safe space, where they can tell their stories, because we believe that telling our stories is a form of liberation. And not only a form of liberation for the people who are telling the stories, but also the people who are reading these stories. Because as you said, as we had talked about, all throughout this conversation, people need these examples, need to see other people living freely, living minimally, living zero waste, and living more green, and striving towards these things, to understand that it is possible. Liberation is possible. So that's, really the central purpose of why this community exists, beyond just making sure we are represented in this movement. Going forward, it's really difficult for me to talk about it, just because we're still trying to formulate
Yeah.
these things. But one of the things we really are trying to think about is how we can connect more in person with people. So yes, this movement has started online, and we built like you said, an awesome community online. It really just amazes me every day that how our community has grown. And but our goals moving forward is to connect with people in person. And we really want to, I guess, meet up, do more meetups. We're thinking about doing a little road trip this summer. We just want to get out into these communities and meet people, and be able to help people face to face. Like we always joke about, like, we're gonna roll up in somebody's house, and help them declutter or something like that.
Right.
But yeah, it's all about connection. Right now, more
That's
connection,
awesome.
both online and offline.
Right.
Because I guess we have to take a more proactive, and not that we aren't proactive, but like we need to get on the ground and roll our sleeves up, and really act on our liberation. One of the things that we were able to do in our first year that we were so proud of is for our first meetup, we volunteered in Washington, D.C. with two organizations that were urban farming, urban gardening. So Black organizations And we were able to help them start building a large compost bin for their community
Nice.
garden.
Nice.
So we want to do more things like that. You know,
Yeah.
we want to put sort of our money, our time, our sweat,
Right.
you know, into the things that we value.
Right.
So definitely in the future, you know, we're working on coordinating more, you know, offline, in-person connections.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I think all of that is great, and I'm looking forward to watching and possibly being a part of that. So, absolutely, let
Yes,
me know how I can help. If it's promoting, I'm all for supporting other businesses and Black people, and it's I'm just so amazed about what in African American women are just doing the most right now.
yes, we are.
It's just
You
so
know,
beautiful. It's just so once.
we are leading in all areas,
Yes.
everything. You
Yes.
know, we are leading this people. We are
Yes.
leading our people.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
it's just so empowering and
Mhm.
inspiring. Like
Yeah.
we are going to get our people free.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I love watching it. I love being a part of it. I love supporting. So anyway, do not hesitate
Yeah,
ever to ask.
definitely.
And
Like yeah, like I said, we are, you know, trying to work on like an actual course.
Mhm.
You know, so right now we're just working on like a small course, but we do have plans to make a larger, like longer course. So I
Yeah.
think there'll definitely be opportunities for us to bring in your expertise. You know, on making our homes healthier,
Yeah.
clean, through the products that we use to, you know, keep make our spaces livable.
Yeah. I mean, and to me, the one of the main reasons why I started Pure Home is just the fact that our food system and our medical system is broken. It's absolutely broken. We
Uh-huh.
should not be going to the doctor to be treated for symptoms. They're not treating diseases. They're
They're not
treating,
trading the cure.
yeah,
They're not trading the treating the root.
yeah, they're not treating us, and I know
No,
that
right.
we go in telling them what's wrong with us, and then they give us a pill based on
Mhm.
what we just told them, and it's like, no, can you figure out what's wrong with me, and then
Mhm.
treat me based on what you know medically is wrong? They don't do that anymore,
Right. They
and
don't look at us holistically.
no, they do not. No, they do not. I was seeing a fertility doctor a couple of years ago. I suffer from infertility, and
Mhm.
I was telling her, I've been eating a vegan diet, and it's been helping me with just high blood pressure, and my just different things. And she was like, "Oh, cause I'm thinking she's gonna give me some feedback that I'm eating vegan." She's like, "Oh, that's wonderful. How's that working out for you?" And I'm like, "It's great." She's like, "We don't get taught nutrition.
Yeah, that's true.
They do
That is
not
very
get
true.
taught as regular physician. She was an endocrinologist, and they didn't teach her about nutrition. So she doesn't teach nutrition. They just treat the symptom. Whatever the symptom is, that's all that they're treating. They're not actually getting down to the core of what's going on in your body and why, and then actually helping you, overcome those things. Just like, okay, you have this issue, let me give you a pill, and that's it. And so, my thing, since
Mhm.
I've been eco friendly, it's not necessarily that I deal with, all the trendy things. I don't really care about zero wasting. I don't really care
Mhm.
about those things. I care about the causes. Your food is the cause. Your products that you use are the cause.
Mhm.
These are,
Mhm.
they're part of the cause. And if you can eliminate those things that are actually causing it, because I know our food is the hugest one. We eat animals that are disease
Mhm.
ridden, and then we take in those diseases.
Yep.
We eat produce that is riddled with all the pesticides and all that stuff. They're genetically modified. We don't know what genetically modified food does. We don't even know if it's actually been cloned or what, because they don't tell us. They
Right.
don't have to tell us. And it's
Exactly.
like, we need to know. And because we don't know, then we have to educate ourselves or find alternatives. And a lot of that means we need to be sustainable. And if
You're
once
right.
we become sustainable, we have our own gardens, we grow our own food, we know what we're putting in our body and our system around us, then that's when disease and illness and all that stuff is going to go away. And that's really my main premises, because I became eco-friendly. I started this lifestyle in 2012. The first thing I did was started making my own soap. That was the very first thing, was make my own soap. And it came, from there. Then it was like, okay, there's more, like these tides and all these
Mm-hmm.
sulfates and all these products that cause cancer. Bleach is one of the biggest toxic thing that you can breathe in. It's so toxic. Oh my gosh, it's just so,
Yeah.
I've used it the other day by accident because my mother-in-law had this spray bottle. So I didn't want to, I was being lazy. I didn't want to go in and get my cleaner, so I just reached for the spray bottle and started spraying. And then I realized it was bleach, and I'm like, first of all, holy shit, why do you have a spray bottle
Mm-hmm.
of bleach, just straight up bleach? Like, why are you cleaning with straight up bleach? At least dilute it to
Yeah.
where it's not as toxic. If that's what you're gonna use it, but dilute it so that it's not so toxic. And I was literally sick after I used it because it was just full on, and I'm like, oh, I remember why I'm
Yeah.
doing what I'm doing. I remember, that this stuff is actually really toxic because I have, you forget when you don't use something and you're not
Yep.
around something, you're just like, oh. And then when you get around it, you're like, oh, I remember why I don't do that anymore, or why I don't use that, or, so.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of, again, what we have to do in our communities is sort of teach each other, why these things are hurting us, why they're harming us, and teach ourselves how to heal ourselves. I'm totally there with you. I have my own issues with fibroids and ovarian cysts.
Mm-hmm.
I've had surgery before to remove cysts, and now fibroids is something new that's popped up,
Yeah.
and it's something that disproportionately affects Black women.
Mm-hmm.
And they can't tell me why I'm suffering from this thing. So I
Yeah.
got to figure it out on my own.
Yeah.
I had to change my diet.
Right.
I stopped using like conventional deodorants and
Mm-hmm.
skincare products. I make my own products.
Mm-hmm.
I make my own deodorant. I make my own skincare.
Yeah.
I'm still working on the cleaning products.
Yeah.
Because
Anything, just
bleach is
vinegar.
a big thing here.
Yeah.
But
Oh
yes,
yeah.
vinegar. But yeah, we have to teach ourselves how to heal ourselves, and we have to help each other heal ourselves, because the medical industry, and just our government in general, and the
Yeah.
agriculture industry, they don't care.
Mm-mm. It's all
All
about
they
making
worry
money.
about is making that money.
Yeah. Yeah. Very unfortunate. I did want to mention one thing, and it was one thing that you talked about, and it's also something that I just keep hearing, and I know that my audience would probably benefit from this conversation, and it's about debt. Like,
Debt?
yes,
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
So can you? Because I know you said you had to get out of debt and you had to like reduce,
I
and
reduced
say,
my debt. I'm not out of it yet.
well, okay. Yeah, but I keep seeing like that's one of the main things in the minimalist community is about, reducing, getting out of debt, paying off your bills. Because, I mean, it's part, of course, that makes sense because it's part of being free. You're not having
Yeah.
to spend all your money trying to pay off all these bills that from stuff that you're accumulated. Can you kind of talk about like how debt and minimalism kind of go together, or
Yeah.
just like what the whole mindset behind that is?
Absolutely. They're just saying that if you want to know what your values are, look at where you spend your money.
Mm-hmm.
So money is a big part of minimalism,
Mm-hmm.
because we live in a materialist consumer society. We are driven and told to buy things because those things are going to make us happy,
Yeah.
or make us beautiful, or whatever it is that we're trying to achieve. But what we end up with is a lot of clutter
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of things that are actually doing the opposite of what we actually wanted in the first place.
Sure.
So money, it all goes back to values. And, money is it's such a big thing, and I don't know that I'm the most qualified to speak on this, because there are plenty of people who talk about a lot about financial management and debt freedom.
Right.
But it is a part of our freedom.
Mm-hmm.
You don't need a lot of money. It's not the amount of money that you have necessarily. It's how you use that money.
Right.
And every time you make a purchase, you have to consciously ask yourself, is this thing that I've expended this energy to earn this money, and now I'm using this money to purchase this thing. Is this thing going to bring value to my life?
Mm-hmm.
Is this thing going to help me get free? And again, going back to some of the goals that I've had, just in, moving abroad, I had to question myself I had to question, the things that I've spent money on in the past and the things that I'm currently spending money on. And, I had to pay off some debt. I paid off as much debt as I could.
Mm-hmm.
I still have my student loans.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, if you want to know where your values are, see where your money is going.
Mm-hmm. That's so good.
And I think that debt is something that is encouraged in the American society.
Yes.
In our lifestyle and our quest for the American dream, debt is seen as a good thing. Mm-hmm. But, debt is really just another form of slavery.
Yeah, I agree. And it is. That's why a lot of people work the jobs that they have, not because they want to, but because they have to. That would be true for me. I mean, that would be completely true for me. If I were to go back out and get a job, it would be because I have to get a job. And, it's not that I want to, or, stuff like that. I have these things that I have to pay for, and this debt that I have to pay for, and, the consumption that I want to consume,
It's so challenging, even for me, because when I first started going minimalist and I left that job that I had at that time, that was the most money that I had ever made in my life. Mm-hmm. And the thing is, even though that was the most money that I ever made, I wasn't using that money appropriately to get myself free. Yeah. And I just realized how much, money I wasted in getting caught up in the American dream and thinking that buying things were going to make me happy when they didn't. And when I left that job, I made a promise to myself that I was never going to work full time for another person. Yeah. I'll work part time, but I had to make a promise to myself to devote time to doing the things that I wanted to do, to building my own business, and to creating the things that I wanted to see in the world. And it's still challenging, but something that I've learned, over the past 5 years from being, employed part-time at different amounts of hours, and even from being unemployed, I made a conscious choice not to work. I learned that I can survive and still do the things that I want on very little money. Right. So I guess that's been one of the most important lessons to me as far as money goes, is that overcoming my fear of not having enough, and sort of stepping into, I guess, an abundance mindset, and understanding that I can do a lot with the money that I have if that money is aligned with my values, and the things that I buy are aligned with my values. And also that I am creative and I have the skills and the talents to earn money in different ways, or earn more money without, having to sell my soul to a corporation or something, or work a 9 to 5 that doing something I don't want to do.
Right. That's so good. That's so good. Yeah, that's really good. I really appreciate your time. I'm gonna let you go because it's been an hour and a half, but I really appreciate your time and speaking with me, and everything that you said. It's been so good. It's given me a lot more to think on in my personal life and in my business. I need to be more minimalist in my business as well. I have been learning to spend if I need it versus just spending because I fear that I'm not going to have it.
Uh-huh.
And, then I have all this excess of stuff that, I just spent money when I really didn't need to. And
Uh-huh.
so that's my biggest challenge is just saying, you don't really need all these things because you have like 15 essential oils already.
Right.
And so this 16th one is not necessary. But anyways, I am going to get this together. I'm going to have fun making these graphics because you dropped a lot of good good
I'm
quotes on
excited.
me.
I'm excited to see how it turns out. And,
Yeah.
Thank you for, asking me to participate. I'm always just so happy to meet more people in our community and connect. And I'm realizing that we all have very, similar stories.
Yeah.
So we need to definitely be connecting more and sharing what we've learned
Absolutely.
with each other.
Absolutely. And like I said, if there's anything that I can ever do for you and your organization, please do not hesitate to reach out. I'm California and Las Vegas, East